Hello everyone, Prime here, and hope you've had a great day. Today we're going to be covering Terminus, mostly his lore and his purpose story. Terminus was a god who, in Roman mythology, didn't do too much in the actual mythology, but in terms of the actual people's lives and his importance in that aspect, very much showed up way more in that sense. He was usually represented as a stone or a stone statue, something of that nature. And if he wasn't just a plain stone, then the statue itself would have no legs, no arms or limbs like that, a chest, and a man's head. The face specifically was supposed to look fairly pretty or attractive or quote-unquote perfect, to give you a bit of a description of how he looked. His actual purpose within Roman mythology, a bit like that player who just watches you die for the sake of allowing themselves to live and then maybe helping you if it's absolutely necessary. Terminus is kind of sort of there, but as I said, is fairly important, or was fairly important to the lives of the ancient Romans. He was the god of boundaries and was connected to boundary markers, which were used to describe areas of privately owned structures and communities. So if your house had one of these stones next to them, first and foremost, no one else is allowed to mess with these stones or they will incur certain punishments, and we'll get onto that in a second. And it of course shows that you have honoured and respected the gods by going through the trouble of placing one of these things down. Because it's not just a simple process of just putting one of these stone downs and boop, you're done. No. First and foremost, you have to dig a nice little hole into the ground, designate a good, nice bit of space for the stone, choose exactly where it would look the best so it doesn't ruin the arrangement of your house, and once all of that frivolous out of the way, then you have to actually, pick up this heavy as all hell stone and put it into the ground. But before you can even do that, you have to pick a sacrifice. And the places that I found weren't specific on exactly what this sacrifice has to be. Specifically, yes, there were animal sacrifices, but then there's also an addition of another sacrifice. So I'm going to assume that means human sacrifice. So this sacrifice is burnt, and their bones are placed under the stone. The stone is then housed on top. But the stone also needs to be drenched or showered or doused in the blood of an animal. What animal specifically? Again, not really mentioned, but it just has to be an animal. After this, the stone is decorated in a nice little ribbon and something else, just to make it look all pretty and nice and ready for the gods to honor the gods. But there is a bright side after all of this, probably not so nice realization that you're doing all of this to honor the gods. There is a feast held annually, and this feast is known as the Turinilla, and it gathers all of the local neighbours of the sort of community that lives near this stone, and you have a nice feast, you might even party a little bit. It's just a nice event, and of course in these times doing all of this was just common practice. You're going along with the religion, the faith, so it's probably not as grim as it sounds. Considering that. Remember when I said that there was a pretty harsh, steep punishment that comes with bothering one of these stones? Yes, well, if anyone dared to push, pull, touch, move, or generally just, shall we say, dishonor one of these stones, any member of the local community was allowed to kill you with absolute 100% guaranteed impunity. That means that they wouldn't necessarily be punished by law or punished morally, or any sort of punishment or thing like that would not be incurred to them. They'd be following the will of the gods, essentially, because you would be the wrongdoer in that case. So don't mess with Terminus' stones. That is not an innuendo. Moving on to his story, though, Terminus, as I said, again, doesn't really do too much as far as connecting to the other gods in Roman mythology. He is the stone, apparently, in some myths, that is gobbled up by Kronos. I.e., the mother of Zeus gives Kronos a stone to eat, or Saturn it would be, Saturn a stone to eat, and I suppose Jupiter instead of Zeus. And that stone was indeed Terminus, and this is supposed to show off how resilient and tough and great Terminus is. Really does seem like he'd make a decent guardian with no arms and no legs, just floating around, a bit like Janus, but actually having to rely on the fact that he's floating more than Giannis would. Anyways, in an actual myth involving Terminus a bit more, but still not that much, Tarquin wanted to build a temple over a certain religious, very important grounds to the gods sort of area. Because he didn't want any curses, because we all know how bad the gods can curse you and you just don't want that, he decided to make certain offers to the gods and hoped that they would give him some sort of approval or tell him directly, no, you cannot do this, in some way or another. And the gods decided to send him a glimpse of future victories, but also made it clear that Terminus did not want any of these stones or this religious sacred ground disturbed. And as such, it wasn't disturbed. A temple was built around some other religious grounds, and Terminus, or a being that embodied or represented Terminus, appeared, and it had these perfect facial features, and the Romans took it to mean that it was sort of a very important aspect of their religion. They took it as a great symbol, and the Romans themselves never directly destroyed it. Not sure if it's still around today, or if it's literally just a part of the mythological story, but there you go. That just is supposed to show off how resilient Terminus is, and of course how important he was to the Roman religion. I suppose it really does make sense as to why he's not in Smite yet, because again, there's not too much to go off of in terms of a mythological story besides what I told you. Too much to know about Terminus. In fact, information about Terminus is very bland, I suppose. There's not that much of it, besides what I've discussed. So if he is put into the game, I would suspect that Hi-Rez would have to, shall we say, develop his story a little bit. But either way, it could be interesting to see him as a guardian. Yes, a guardian in Smite. Maybe a hybrid mage like Aphrodite, but most sense a guardian. Which would actually be weird seeing a guardian floating around with no arms or no legs, being a frontliner. But that's essentially what Terminus is. A stony version of Giannis without arms or legs. Yeah. Enjoy that in your dreams tonight, kids. But we've reached the end of the video, and I hope you did enjoy. If you did, go ahead, leave a like. If you didn't, well, you can still subscribe to the channel, and even if you did enjoy, yes, go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Share the video, as that always helps, and tell me, which god or goddess would you like me to cover next? I think I'll re-add the Baba Yaga to the little options. I might have removed her from the last video, just because I really felt like covering Terminus, and my wish was granted because you guys picked Terminus, which is great. Even though I semi-regretted it, because Terminus, there wasn't that much information on him. Apparently I've been able to talk for, well, over 5 minutes, so that's a good thing. And that's that. So, till the next video, don't forget to vote. Have a very good day. I've been Prime. Go and check out another video, maybe Gilgamesh or the Loki fan theory I did, and have a good day. Bye-bye.